All right, hello and welcome. The patch has dropped, and with it comes significant crafting changes. Like, wow, major crafting. Some of the stuff that was great about the old system is still there, but a lot of the stuff has changed, and in my opinion, for the better. But for those who haven't been following closely, let's go into what has changed, what is like it was before, what do you need to know about, what are your options going forward with the crafting system. So first off, the Forge Crafter UI is still the same. It hasn't changed at all. And you still take an item and you put it in there and you upgrade things, or you can add things the way that you used to be able to. That is all still there. There are still runes, there are still glyphs, even though they are different in many cases. Some of them are the same, some of them are much, much different. But the runes glyph system generally is still just like it was. What has changed the most is we used to have instability, and instability, as it increased, would make it more and more likely you would fracture your item and not be able to craft on it anymore. And that system had a lot of problems. It didn't feel good to, fracture things at 95% potential or instability, for example. So they've moved on to a forging potential system. Forging potential is now kind of like instability. Except it just goes down as you craft. As you craft stuff, you have a chance to reduce your forging potential until you hit 0, at which point it's kind of like a fracture. You just can't craft on it any further. An interesting mechanic that's been added with this is not all items have the same forging potential to start with, and items that have more stuff on them, so like rare or exalted, are more likely to have more forging potential, which is the opposite of the old system, where the more stuff that was on it, the more instability it picked up, and the more likely we were to fracture it earlier. This is good. This means that really good items have better forging opportunities, or crafting opportunities, particularly with exalteds, which have theoretically the most forging potential, because you can really mess around with them a lot. You can try to, get them to be really, really good. You don't have to worry about them breaking really early on you and getting something super rare and having it just crash and burn immediately, which is definitely a really bad feeling. So that's mostly gone, which is awesome. All right, so let's just go in how this works. So for example, I've got this living seed here of insulation. It's got elemental resistance on it. I have a couple of options I can do here, but the basic is very similar to what it used to be. So if I go in here and I pick a prefix, or something, whatever, cold resistance, and I pop it in here, and if I don't do anything else to it, clear that out, then I have a cost of forging potential that occurs. It's anywhere from, in this case, 1 to 15. The amount of forging potential that it costs is largely determined by how many tiers you have on. To put the first one on is expensive. A tier 1 to tier 2 is not very expensive. A tier 4 to tier 5 is very expensive. Well, potentially, because it could go 1 or it could go 15. It all just depends on RNG. I do believe the system is weighted towards lower numbers, though, so you shouldn't have too bad of a time of it too often. I've been noticing in my own crafting that they're going very, very well. Like, crafting is just way more successful than it used to be. And on top of that, there are a lot of ways to augment it or to get lucky that either weren't in the system before or were just like kind of standalones that didn't have a lot of extra help. So the critical success chance is still there, and if you critical success now, you don't burn any forging potential. You don't use the materials that were put in, including glyphs or runes. That all is free, and you still get the +1 somewhere else. So you get 2 upgrades. You get no cost whatsoever when that happens. You can also put on a Glyph of Hope and have a 25% chance on a craft to have no forging potential cost. So there are 3 potential positive outcomes now compared to kind of like 1 before. You just have it'd be a low cost craft and save most of your forging potential. You could have a Glyph of Hope proc and have it be a no cost craft, or you can have a critical success happen and have it be a no cost craft and give you an additional bonus tier somewhere. So a lot more positive outcomes versus negative. On top of all of that, the crafting itself got a lot more interesting because there's a lot more options to you. So let's go through the glyphs and the runes, because those have changed dramatically. This Glyph of Hope, for example, is effectively taking the place of the Glyph of the Guardian and the Glyph of Stability from the old crafting system, and they just rolled into this, which, great. You don't have to think about that too much. But now you have other decisions you can make So, for example, you could choose to do a Glyph of Chaos. What a Glyph of Chaos does is it still upgrades the item like it normally would, but instead of giving you a 25% chance to not cost anything, it will change the affix to something else that can roll in that slot. So, for example, I'll actually use one. Let's take this elemental resistance here on this. We will upgrade it with a Glyph of Chaos, upgrade and roll. It cost me 7 forging potential to do that, and it turned it into all resistances while channeling. It doesn't always work out for you. Like, I don't really want all resistances while channeling, but it could if you have a really bad affix on there, one that's bad for your build. This is a way to target that affix off. We didn't have this before. Before we had Rune of Removal, which would remove a random affix. It's still there, by the way. You can still do that, but if you have an exalted item and you're trying to get a bad affix off, Rune of Removal might just remove that exalted. This system at least makes sure that the exalted stays and gives you an opportunity to get rid of that affix by upgrading into a better affix than what it was. Definitely RNG, but a new strategy that we didn't have before. We also have Glyph of Order now. Glyph of Order you will use when you've got a really good roll on something. Let's say you got a perfect roll melee fizz damage at tier 4 and you want to go to tier 5 and maintain that. Like, you don't want to lose the perfect roll you got. You put on Glyph of Order and it maintains it. So there's a cost benefit here, of course. You can't use Glyph of Hope and Glyph of Order. You're using this instead of Glyph of Hope or Glyph of Chaos, although you probably wouldn't want that in this particular scenario. You have to make a calculated decision of what you're going to put in, knowing that some things will potentially cost more forging potential, but will guarantee you success in areas that you didn't have an option, or modify it in some way that wasn't available to you previously. There's also, this is a really cool one, Glyph of Despair now. What this does is anything tier 4 or lower, you can put this on. Like, I could put this on all just while channeling. If that was tier 4, I can't put it on now, but if I did, I would have a chance to seal that affix, not upgrade it, and move it to a 5th affix slot. So effectively giving me 5 affix slots when that was never possible before, and potentially making a tier 24 non-exalted and a tier, well, technically tier 32 exalted are now possible when that just wasn't the case before. 4 affixes was all we could do. Now we can do 5. You have to get lucky. There's no guarantee you're going to get this, but again, it's more of that letting the player make calculated decisions and have strategy in their crafting beyond just doing a math problem, which is what the old system did. Now, as far as the runes, some of these are the same, some of these are very different how they work. 1 was replaced and then 2 were added. So Rune of Shattering is the same thing it was. You break it down, you hope to get some shards. Hey, Stria, how are you? You hope to get some shards out of it. It's RNG whether you will or not. The more tiers you have on a suffix or a prefix or an affix, the more likely you are to get at least 1. You're only guaranteed 1 total, though. This has not changed at all. Rune of Refinement has not changed either. You just reroll all the values of all the affixes on an item with their tiers. Nothing different here. Rune Removal has, though. Rune Removal has changed significantly in one way. It still does the whole remove and affix thing. It costs forging potential to do it. In fact, it can cost a lot, up to 25. But whatever it removes, it refunds you all of the shards from that. So if I were to use this right now, in fact, let's do that. I'm going to use this on here. I am going to get back all tier 5, all 5 of shards of this. I'll get 5 shards from the all resist while channeling. So remove an effects, and I got 5, just like that. Guaranteed. One thing it's not guaranteed is that how much it'll cost you in forging potential. This cost me 6 forging potential. So you could run out of forging potential doing this, and then you can't do it in removal anymore, and you have to switch to shattering at best. So again, there's more strategy here, but the rune removal, if you've gotten a fix on an item that you definitely want, like plus warpath, plus 2 war, whatever it is, something that you've been farming, and it finally dropped an item that you don't like, but you need that affix, removal it first and see if you can get it from the removal, because it will guarantee you all the shards. And then if you run out of forging potential, then go ahead and shatter it. This will get you a lot more of those shards than the old system would have. I'll catch up with you in a second, Aster. I'm just finishing up a video here. Rediscovery is actually one of my favorite. This one, I can't use this item because I've already killed it. Let's take this out. This one, what it does is it says, okay, You've got 2 affixes, right? You don't, there's two an area here you don't have any affixes. Let me put an affix there, and I won't charge you any forging potential, but I choose the affixes. That is the Rediscovery chooses it. It does have an increased chance of rolling rarer affixes, like, you know, plus skill or class-based stuff, but it's not. There's no guarantee you'll get it. So this is definitely a roll of the dice, but you don't use any forging potential, and you can always chaos up if you need to after that point. But it definitely gives you a chance. Let's see what we get here. Health regen, lightning damage. Not great for this build. Not good at all, actually. But it could have been health here and fizz damage. That could have happened. And then I would have been I've been 2 shards up. And remember, the first craft from nothing to tier 1 is one of the more expensive ones. So another chance for you to use some strategy in your crafting. Rune of Shaping is the same, except in the old system, it rolled more in the mid, like it was skewed to the average. They've removed that. Now it's completely random. This is great for high level crafting because you have a much better chance of getting a high roll on your implicit. Rune of Ascendance changes an item into a unique or set item of the same item type. So for example, you throw a ring in here and you use this, you will get a unique ring. In fact, I'll show you. Let's put a ring in here. Actually, let's just use the belt. We got the belt. The belt's not that good. Do I want to use the belt? Do I want to go for something that I know is going to be a good spot? Let's just use the belt. All right, so Rune of Ascendance this. And we got Viper Tail. This can roll legendary potential, by the way. You can get legendary potential by doing this. Not that time, but it can happen. The last one, I don't have it easy right now, but what this does is, if you're familiar with mirrors in PoE, it's kind of similar. It will take an item that you have, it will make a mirrored version of it, an identical copy, but it will remove all forging potential, so you cannot craft on either one of them. This is particularly good in 2 cases. One, let's see, you've got a freaking GG ring that you put together. You've still got a little bit of forging potential, so you can craft on it some more because you need that to do that, to use this rune. You can now copy that and just have 2 of them. You can wear 2. Do the same thing with a sword, or you know, something you can dual wield, and now you've got 2 GG rings or 2 GG swords. The other thing it's really good for is the new legendary system. So the legendary system uses an exalted, and you take the exalted and it takes some affixes from that and puts it on the unique with legendary potential. So for example, this one right here has got 1 legendary potential on it, which means that when I throw that in with an exalted, which has to have 4 affixes, by the way, that's one of the rules of the legendary system. The exalted has to have 4 affixes. It will take one of those off and put it on Ribbons of Blood. Now, what if I've got a really good exalted with an amazing affix, and I want that particular affix, and I don't want the other ones? Well, there's only a 25% chance I'm going to get it. If I use the mirror system, then I can get two chances at it, as long as I can find another unique to go with it. So it gives me some bad luck protection if I have a great exalted that I am risking on a unique. So really cool for that high-end crafting. The high-end crafting is something we just really didn't have any access to. There's no cool things we could do before. Now we've got a bunch of them, and I'm super excited with it. I've been having so much fun today crafting, which I haven't had fun crafting in LE in literally months. So I'm super happy about it. All right, that's it for me. That's it for this guide. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to join us as we're doing all this stuff, doing crafting away, I stream 6 days a week on Twitch. Would love to have you there. Also, we have a Discord where you can feel free to come in and ask questions and just chat with us about whatever. We have a pretty fun community. All right, thanks again for watching. Enjoy your time of last Epoch. Enjoy the new crafting system and 0.8.4, and I will see you all again real soon.